great responsibility. When the government of India declared itself the pharmacy of the world, it should have been reminded of this. If you are going to export medicines and vaccines to the world, then quality is non-negotiable. Even the slightest let-up can prove to be fatal. You know this. Let me tell you about the worrying news that came to us from Uzbekistan. At least 18 children in Samarkand have died after allegedly consuming an Indian-made syrup. It's called Doc 1 Max, and it is made by a company called Marion Biotech, which is based in Noida. The major component of this syrup is paracetamol. So those parents who bought it thought that they could use it as an anti-cold remedy. The children drank the syrup for 7 days, that too around 3 or 4 times a day. 21 of them were hospitalized with kidney damage. And the last we checked, 18 of those children had died. Yes, of course, the parents and pharmacies have to take some blame, but as it turns out, the syrup itself was toxic. Uzbekistan's health ministry conducted preliminary tests on the Indian-made syrup. They found traces of an impurity called ethylene glycol. Does that ring a bell? Maybe not for you, but it will ring bells in the Indian Health Ministry, because this is the very same substance that was responsible for the death of 70 children in Gambia. In case you don't remember, let me tell you what had happened. By late July, the government in Gambia noticed an uptick in children diagnosed with kidney failure. All of them had consumed 4 Indian syrups made by a company called Maiden Pharmaceuticals. When the samples were tested, 2 impurities were traced: ethylene glycol and diethylene glycol. Back then, both the company and the government of India rejected these allegations. But last week, a Gambian parliamentary panel recommended the company's prosecution, essentially meaning that Gambia is going to be suing the company. Coming back to Uzbekistan, the sale of Doc 1 Max has been halted across the country. Here in India, the syrup was never sold in the first place, so there is nothing to worry about. But Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia has taken note of the incident. He says Marion Biotech's Noida facility has been inspected and samples have been sent for testing. The company's legal head is saying an investigation is underway, and until then, production has been halted.
देखो हमें भी अफसोस है, कहते हैं अब किस वजह से डेथ हुआ, अभी जो है गवर्नमेंट यहाँ इंक्वायरी कर रही है, अंडर इन्वेस्टिगेशन है. जो रिपोर्ट आएगी उसके बाद जो है रिपोर्ट आने के बाद जो है सही चीज़ें मालूम होंगी. हमारी तरफ से कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. हमने
take very seriously any such incidents when they come up. The fact that we are discussing this, and so those are important. But let me not jump the process without the full investigation having been taken. This has just been made public now.
Now, all these deaths have the same common thread: the presence of ethylene glycol and diethylene glycol. Why were these substances in the cough syrup in the first place? And what is their impact on human beings? Let's answer these 2 questions first. Most cough syrups need a solvent or a thickening agent. So pharma companies add glycerine to their product. That's the safe way of making a cough syrup. But some companies like to cut corners. Instead of glycerine, they add cheaper alternatives like ethylene glycol and diethylene glycol. Both these substances are used for industrial purposes. They also happen to be toxic for the human body. They can cause vomiting, fainting, and in worst cases, kidney failure. The question is, could Gambia and Uzbekistan be one such case? The government of India says the Gambian syrups did not contain impurities, but the local authorities disagree. Like I said, they are planning to sue the Indian company behind those cough syrups. Back here in India, there is also a political battle around the deaths in Uzbekistan. Let me tell you what Congress leader Jairam Ramesh wrote on Twitter this morning. He said, quote unquote, "Made in India cough syrups seem to be deadly. Modi Sarkar must stop boasting about India being a pharmacy to the world and take the strictest action." The BJP has hit back, saying the Congress is demeaning the pharma industry and is blinded by its hatred for Prime Minister Modi.
In their hate for Prime Minister Modi, Congress is now running down India and its entrepreneurial spirit. It is the fact that India is a laboratory, or it is the pharmacy of the world. We have provided vaccines and medicines to the world at the most critical times. In the case of Uzbekistan, there is an inquiry that is going on, but there are also reports which suggest that the deaths were a result of administering wrong medicine without doctor's prescription and in limits beyond what is prescribed for children.
Now, Mr. Amit Malviya also claims that Gambian authorities have given the Indian syrup a clean chit. That is not true. Just last week, a special committee of the Gambian Parliament submitted a report on these deaths. It recommended that Maiden Pharma be blacklisted and legal action be pursued. Doesn't sound like a clean chit to me. The fact is, such incidents are bound to raise questions on India's pharma credentials. In 2021, the Prime Minister had declared India the pharmacy of the world. And looking at the data, you cannot fault him. India accounts for 60% of all vaccine exports and 20% of all generic medicine exports. But quality always trumps quantity. There is no use being the pharmacy of the world if your cough syrups end up killing 10-year-olds in Africa and Central Asia. These incidents will make people second-guess their pharma dealings with India. We need tighter regulation, more manpower, and more funding to ensure quality. If not, there will always be companies looking to cut corners. And that is a big problem. Joining me now is Dr. Randeep Guleria. He's the former director of the All India Institute of Medical Sciences. There are two quick questions that I want to put to him. Dr. Guleria, there are two schools of thought here, and this seems to have become political. One that is saying that the story is a deliberate attempt to defame India's growing pharma industry, which is respected around the world. And the other school of thought is saying, look, there clearly is a problem if this has happened in two countries now.
So I think we need to look at the data, but I would say that we should have good monitoring and protocols in place, because when we're dealing with medicines, whether it be cough syrups or anything else that is there, it's very important that we maintain high standards of quality so that there is a global satisfaction. But at the same time, we should be careful that this is not something which is done to malign the country, because India is the pharmacy of the world and we are providing drugs to a large extent to the entire globe and at a very cost-effective manner. But I think it's important that we make sure that our standards are maintained, at the same time are able to counter any issues which may be there to malign our country.
Dr. Guleria, before I let you go, can I ask you, we do not know what the investigations will find. Uzbekistan has done a preliminary investigation. It has blamed the India-made cough syrup. The Indian government has collected samples today. All production in that particular pharmacy, in their production house, is currently stalled. We know that is where the story stands. But irrespective of that, it's happened in Gambia, it's happened in Uzbekistan. Do you think things like this or incidents like this will end up impacting India's image as the world's pharmacy?
No, they do have an effect as far as the image of the country is concerned, and that's why it's very important that we counter them properly with good hard data. At the same time, we build standards that are international, and then we can show that we are following international standards, and therefore there can be no doubt in terms of the quality of products that are coming out from our country.
Okay, Dr. Guleria, we'll leave it there for the moment. Thank you very much. Always good to speak to you. Let's shift our focus to Odisha now. A dead Russian tycoon, a hurried autopsy, and an oppressive regime eager to kill the news.